So it is currently day 1 of the brand new Rush box, and I'm pretty sure I've already found the best deck. Now keep in mind, it is only day 1, and I haven't played Rush Duel in like 2 months, so I'm still currently in silver, but even still, I'd be pretty surprised if there was a deck list that was, or at least an archetype that was stronger than this one. I'm of course talking about Royal Rebel, which just received a brand new skill, which is the very definition of a balanced skill. Yeah, who needs stop defense when you can just play a skill that just does that for you, for every single one of your opponent's monsters. It also allows you to out any single maximum monster. It also allows you to set up a board nuke that just removes your opponent's entire field. It also allows you to make sure that you're removing your opponent's biggest monster and giving your main boss monster as much attack as physically possible. Oh, and did I mention the skill is not once per duel? It's not even twice per duel. It's literally every single turn you can use it. And the only cost is you just have to discard 1 card. Yeah, I don't know what Konami were thinking when they cooked this one. Now, with all that being said, again, it is only day 1, so I'm probably just talking out my ass here, and it is pretty rare for a deck list to actually reach the tier 0 status, so despite how I might clickbait this video, despite this deck probably being the best deck, it's probably still only like a tier 1 sort of a deck. At least, I really hope it's only a tier 1 sort of a deck list. But I do think it's a pretty safe bet to say that if you're looking for something to just completely shit on the ladder with, this deck list will definitely do that for you. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I get to the deck list, if you guys are enjoying today's video and want to see some more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, so apparently about 35% of you watching this are even subscribed to the channel, meaning 65% of you haven't even subscribed yet. So if you guys are enjoying this kind of content, want to see some more deck lists from me in the future, or more videos from me in the future, remember to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Obviously I still have a whole bunch of videos planned around the latest box, things like your harpies and your other various maximum summons that we have to go through, things like maybe Thunder as well, and some other deck lists to check out. So if you want to see any of those videos, remember to subscribe so you don't miss out, and let's jump into this deck list. So today's deck list is obviously going to be your Royal Rebel. Now what exactly is new with this archetype? Well, to start with, we obviously have to go through this absolutely ridiculously broken bonkers skill, Hell Tuning Invasion. Alright, so this skill can only be used if the only monsters with 1400 or more attack in your deck are light attribute fiend type. Requirement: send 1 card from your hand to your graveyard. That's it, that's all the requirements and that's all the conditions that are needed to use this skill. Effect: all monsters in either field become face up attack position. So already, just that first line is a ridiculous skill for Rush Duel. Keep in mind, we just got stop defense as an SR card in this game. This skill just does that for you for every single one of your opponent's monsters. Alright, until the end of the turn, the level of all level 4 or lower fiend type monsters on your field become level 5. Again, already that is a bonkers skill considering the deck list loves to have level 5 monsters on your field. Additionally, and the level of all level 5 or higher monsters in your opponent's field is decreased by 4. Which is crazy to think about because it reduces maximum summons from their level 10 status down to in kill range of your deck's main boss monster, and of course it reduces the high level monster in your opponent's field to be lower level than any of your other monsters your opponent has. Any of their low level monsters become high level, their high level monsters become low level, meaning your main boss monster is going to be killing the bigger stuff rather than the smaller stuff. Alright, this turn you cannot attack with monsters that are level 6 or lower, so that's the only sort of major downside to this, is that once you've summoned out your big guy, you can't really attack with your smaller dudes as well. You're stuck just having that one attack, and that's basically it most of the time. Alright, it also sets up for one of the other brand new cards in the deck list, the new level 7 Royal Rebels Invasion. Requirement: during the turn you normal summon this card by tributing 2 level 5 or higher monsters, which of course, the skill just turned all your fiends into level 5. Destroy all face up level 4 or lower monsters on your opponent's field. And again, you just changed your opponent's entire field to being level 4 or lower. So this just nukes your opponent's entire field at the cost of, well, essentially nothing, just that 1 discard to activate the skill. This archetype also received an additional 2 supporting cards, starting with your Shadow Buyer. Alright, requirement: shuffle 1 monster from your graveyard into the deck. Now keep in mind, this is actually a very powerful requirement. Considering this art type only has 6 boss monsters, it's kind of nice to be able to shuffle them back into the deck list to draw into them later on. It means you don't have to rely on cards like your Monster Reincarnation or your Royal Rebels Rocker, which feels pretty bad to use in this deck list considering it stops you attacking directly for the turn, which is really bad of course with your invasion. It's only good for grabbing your heavy metal, so it's nice not to rely on cards like this. Alright. Effect. Increase this card's level by the number of face-up monsters on your opponent's field until the end of this turn. You can only attack with Fiend-type monsters this turn. So obviously this card's effect is a little bit redundant considering the skill just changes the level of your field anyway, but the main reason you want to use this card is when you don't actually want to use the skill, because the skill does have the downside of that discard, and it also has the downside of you can't attack with your low level monsters for the turn, so it can sometimes come up where you just don't want to use the skill and instead you can use your Shadow Buyer, especially considering this card only needs 1 level 5 or higher monster as tribute, rather than this card which needs 2, so sometimes if you just open heavy metal, you just want 1 tribute, you use this guy, that way you don't have to discard, and you can still attack with your 1500 attack beaters and stuff like that. Alright, and the final additional support is your Cobalt Cobolt. Alright, requirement, send 1 Fiend type monster from your hand to the graveyard. Draw 1 card. So it's a great little cycling card that you're going to use quite often, just a nice little cycling card, so of course you're going to play it in this deck list. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the deck list portion of the video. The rest of the cards in here are all just old cards you've probably all seen before, and if you haven't seen them, don't worry, you'll certainly see all their effects and stuff during the gameplay portion anyway. So without further ado, let's jump into some gameplay showcasing what this deck list can do. Alright, so today I've got 6 replays to share with you guys, and to start with, I want to show off one particular replay because it's a fairly entertaining one, and I think it just shows off just how bullshit this skill can be, especially if your opponent doesn't quite know how it works yet, so yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so if you're wondering about win rates and stuff with this deck list, I think with this particular list, I went 9 wins and 1 loss, which is a pretty good showing, but obviously I'm currently still in silver, so who knows what is at the higher ranks. I assume it's still pretty fucking good, so anyway. So starting off going first, I'm just setting everything because that's all I can do, and passing the turn. And my opponent decides to just set everything as well and not remove my potential tributes. Not a good idea versus this deck list, as you're about to see. Alright, so the thing about this deck list, or this skill, is you need to have a monster face up and a set monster to use it. So once I've got my stuff face up, I can activate the skill, turning everything to level 5, and flipping everything my opponent controls face up. Alright, so tribute summoning, of course, your Royal Rebels Heavy Metal. It's pretty dope animation, actually. Not quite as good as the guitarist animation from the other character, but alright, popping a card on the field, making this monster 3500 attack, and then of course we can do another tribute summon. Summoning out the same monster again, popping another card, making it 4000 attack, and my opponent is dead on my second turn. So hopefully this is a good setup to show, or a good way to hype you guys up for the video, or the rest of the replays, because that was a very silly game. Of course, not your average duel. Normally your opponent isn't going to just leave you with 3 tributes set up, but that just shows you like the peak of what this skill can do if your opponent just, even for 1 second, bricks or leaves your field alone, they're going to die. Alright, moving on. Starting off with Rich over here.
Here we go! Get ready for the rush!
Alright, so once again, going first. Not the greatest opening hand. Normally you want to have at least 3 monsters on the field face down, but should be fine. My opponent's going to swing in. I'm actually going to use my widespread here despite it being a fairly low status monster, because that way I can keep one of my tributes alive, which is important considering I have a bunch of high level monsters in hand. Alright, Shadow Buyer, going to make it level 5. Summoning out my... This is a good example of, by the way, not using the skill, just using my Shadow Buyer instead, because I don't really need to. Summoning out the Heavy Metal, popping the opponent's monster, and making my card fairly big. Alright, swinging in, which would have been potentially lethal, unfortunately hit by the widespread. We've got to save at least a Heavy Metal for the following turn. Alright, my opponent really pops off here. Using one of the few skills in the game that actually lets you search for cards, grabbing your 7's Row Magician. Alright. Swinging in 3000 attack, 2800 attack, and passing back over. Alright, setting 2 monsters once again, need to have one face down. So putting one face down, flipping it face up, starting my heavy metal, popping a card, beating my opponent, and passing the turn. Unfortunately, can't try to potentially go for lethal, even if I did have enough attack, because I can only attack with the big ones on the turn. Use the skill. Alright. Opponent's in lethal range now if I ever top deck this dude, which we did. So now we've got our invasion. We know our opponent can't really survive the turn because he's already used his widespread ruin, which is basically the only trap card this deck cares about. So remove that and your opponent is just, they're not going to survive. Alright, moving on. Yeah, I'll be surprised if there's any deck that's actually stronger than this one. Again, it's only day one, so maybe a deck list will come out that turns out to be better than this one, but there's no way this deck isn't at least a top tier deck in some sense. It is too good. You're just nuking everything your opponent has. It's also one of the few decks that can out maximum summons without actually having to worry about playing tech cards to do so. Your boss monster just outs it because the skill lowers a level, so... Alright, Hell Tuning Invasion, going to be using my skill, flipping everything face up, allowing me to summon my boss monster once again. And of course, very importantly, changing my opponent's highest level monster down to being now the lowest level monster on his field. So I can suck up this fat attack instead of the lowest stat, and hit my opponent for 5,000. It's not a bad turn 1, putting my opponent at 2200. Obviously the downside of this deck list though is most of the time you're not going to have anything to sort of wall up and defend yourself, making your life points fairly susceptible to being able to take a lot of backlash, but it's fine, because now we summon our invasion and our opponent's already dead on field. So this deck list, realistically, it feels like only has like 2-ish weaknesses. The first one being, of course, if your opponent has a widespread, you've only got one monster on the field, you're going to take a significant amount of damage when your opponent gets to attack again. And of course, your opponent being able to attack when you only have one monster on the field is already a pretty big downside, so... Alright, this is the replay we already spectated, actually, oops. My bad, let me just cancel this one. Alright, talking about this replay here. I don't even know what the mirror looks like for this, because I haven't actually versed someone playing the same deck list yet. I assume the mirror is absolutely just putrid to play. It's just your opponent summoning a big monster, you summoning a big monster, and just who gets to kill each other first. It's probably a case of whoever gets to attack wins in that matchup, actually, so... That sounds like a terrible mirror. Yeah, I really hope this deck list actually doesn't become the best deck in the game, because that sounds awful. Alright, so opponent setting up not a whole lot turn 1, but that's fine. He even leaves a tribute left on my field, which is fantastic for me. Alright, once again summoning out the heavy metal. Don't think did I use the skill this turn? No, I didn't use the skill this turn. I decided I didn't want to because I wanted to attack with my lower status monsters, so I just used my Shadow Buyer instead. Keeping my opponent for a bunch of damage. And keeping the Kuribot in hand because I've already got a Kuribot in graveyard to potentially grab back for extra tribute fodder on the following turn. Alright, is it my Prismatic Kuribot? It's not even the Prismatic one, come on. Damn, I don't think I draw my Prismatic one this duel, unlucky. Alright, Hell Tuning Invasion, flipping the card space up, summoning the invasion, nuking the field. He has a widespread, but I've got 2 monsters. And he lives on 100 life points, actually, because Phantom Bind, that's a fairly significant stat reduction with my entire deck speed. So at least stops him dying. So maybe Phantom Bind might actually see a lot of play if this deck list sees a lot of play. Alright. Invasion, going to be using these 2 cards, making my dude, and hitting him in the face. He's already used his widespread, so there's no way he's stopping the 2300. Alright. Yami Fachu? I think this was actually the brick replay. So, another sort of downside of this deck list is because there's only sort of 6 boss monsters for it, sometimes you can brick a bit where you just don't open any of them. which I think this was a very rare case where I didn't open any of them my first, like, 5 draws, then didn't open them the next, like, 4 afterwards or something. It was pretty insane. Yes, I didn't open it yet, which is a very bad sign, so I can't nuke his field, leaving him with 1 billion tributes so he can set up just everything he feels like. And then even on the following turn, I still didn't draw into it, which is just... I think it's like a 90% chance of this not to happen with this deck. Like, actually 90%. Not seeing one of these 6 cards in your first 9 draws. But it made for a great replay, because now we get to do the sick-ass comeback. Still didn't get to see the board nuke yet, which feels pretty bad, because I really wanted to clear my opponent's entire field, which we can't do yet. So really just hoping on our opponent to brick, really. And also just summoning this card out, it feels pretty bad as well. Nothing even graveyard to grab back with it. Decided not to swing in, because I know my opponent's probably got a barrier set or something. Alright, still actually haven't seen our other boss monster yet. But thankfully we can put everything our opponent controls face up. And he didn't draw into anything pretty insane on his turn, he had a brick as well. Which is only fair, if I have a brick for 2 turns, he can have at least 1 brick during his duel. Alright, he's gonna summon out his big dragon. Beat over my boy. And finally, there he is. Only took till we only have, what, 7 cards left in deck before we saw him. Invasion nuking the field, and he's a goner. Alright, and our final replay. I think this was a Harpy replay, I think. Alright.
Let's begin. Get ready for the rush.
Currently gonna be setting 1, tribute summoning, not the greatest turn 1, honestly. Especially considering he's up against a deck list that likes to have a... Yeah, really likes when your opponent sets up just 1 monster on field. That's a lot of stats we can get for heavy metal on turn 1. And not so much to defend against the stats. So already hitting him for 4,600 on the first turn. And we have follow-up in hand already, so... Just notice this guy's got absolutely insane abs. Goddamn. Alright. 1,400 to 3,000, and of course, Kuribot's going to be adding a copy to our hand. Thank God we drew Kuribot actually, because these cards are obviously can't be used as tributes. Invasion nuking the field, and our opponent is just dead. I don't actually know if did I even resolve any of my trap cards in any of these replays? I don't think I even used the trap cards once. Maybe I used widespread. Oh, I did use widespread runs, but I didn't actually don't think I even resolved this Majesty in any of these replays. But anyway, that's gonna do it for today's replays. Hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Plenty of Rush content to still come out over the upcoming days from various different maximum decks and whatever else I got from the box. So yeah, if you want to see those, remember to subscribe. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.